meeting in months.
They're all online.
Yeah.
They try some. Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and
to
to
the
the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Well, you'd like to think it's the rain, but it could also be the Knicks game.
Oh, yeah.
I was accused of aiding in Solly's planning committee, tongue in cheek, but remotely because I can be conveniently watching the Knicks game at the same time.
You made it.
Oh, so you made it.
You only just missed the
Your
pledge.
timing's magnificent. That's good.
But John, in 2025,
There's
you could be
parking in
at
the
the
front,
meeting
which
watching the game like
Yeah,
this.
that's all right. That's true, but I'm not gonna do. So we've already had our digression on ARB stuff, which we'll deal with in an upcoming meeting. And then bring it to the streamlining committee, which will meet on May 29th. I have a small favor to ask, which I think you guys do 99% of the time. If you have a request of a village staff, try to copy me or at least Larry, because what often happens is, I'm going to use yours as an example, although you did exactly what you were supposed to do. So this is not considered a complaint. You're the perfect example for what to do. If you're going to ask the chief about what to do out front, it's going to end up coming back to Larry to me because he's going to say, what's the board think? And this might
Right.
cost money. What do they want?
Yeah.
And sometimes we can make it easier for you. And if we disagree, we'll just let you do your thing. And if it works, great. That doesn't mean we'll abandon you. It just means that, you get the chance to try to lobby somebody to do it. So that's all I have to say on that particular subject. And I try to do the same in reverse, which is if I'm doing something, I copy you on it. Maybe more than you want to see, but at least you are aware of stuff going on. So next up is the review of the capital budget. I think it would be fair to say this is sort of the first pass, and then we'll be revisiting it. I did beforehand, so people won't have to ask this. I said the next time, show us how the debt roll-off lays out, principal and interest, like we've done in the past, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you were planning on doing that anyway.
Standard operating procedure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is like the initial draft. We'll get feedback, any questions, and then once we either have the go ahead or narrow it down, then.
And this is
I'll
just
come out
what
with
the
the
department's
payment
requested,
schedule.
right?
Yes, it's
Okay.
little bit.
They wanna just.
Oh, I know that. They
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
we
get it. That's all we
start
get.
by giving them last year's capital plan, which laid out future years, have them look at the 25-26 year. If they think it should stay on, then it would stay the same. If they feel that it should be pushed out to a later year or not done, then we would just adjust accordingly, or if they had anything new, then we add it in. So I'll go over just operating first capital budget quickly for those who haven't been part of this process yet. So capital is for longer term assets and projects typically involving larger cost items. They're assets that have multi-year lives, like a building, vehicle, or culvert, which can be borrowed for and paid off over the life of the asset. It's a way to spread the cost to match the life of the asset instead of having today's taxpayers pay all of the costs for the item upfront. It's also practical since these large projects could overwhelm an operating budget if it were to be paid all in one year. We have to keep in mind that money needs to be borrowed in an orderly fashion. Otherwise, the annual cost of debt service can overwhelm the operating budget. This happens when new borrowings are significantly higher than our annual debt payback. So where we stand currently without adding on any new debt. So at the end of this fiscal year, the village will have 19.9 million in outstanding bond principal payments and 6.35 in corresponding interest payments. Pay downs of 1.275 in principal and 737 in interest will be made during next fiscal year. So then.
And those are already built into the operating.
Correct. Yes. All right. So then that brings us to the capital budget, department project listing. And then, so this is the first draft where I have it broken out by department, and then further down into year, once we, get further into the process, then there'll be another schedule like this that breaks it down by year only, and then I'll also prepare the pay down and debt schedules.
And when it says other funding sources, obviously I recognize grants that we have, like circle and everything. But like for the trucks and DPW and other things, are they always grants or are there other things?
It's
that-
not always grants. So other funding sources here, so for example, like the first one, street sweeper, the 25,000, that would be the sale of our current street sweeper, which could be used towards bringing the cost of the new one down. Usually the larger amounts here, the 2 culvert projects, the mini rear load packer, we haven't been given, awarded that grant yet, but we're on a list, so that's a potential future grant opportunity. The 2 smaller items, DPW roof snow guards and the server computer upgrade for the fire department. And also the server upgrade for police department that, we just put as using fund balance because it's a small amount. So that's the initial thought
You-
for those.
Do you want to do the whole thing, or can we ask questions as you go, or what would you prefer?
Um,
Okay.
Either way, I guess
Let's-
ask
well,
questions,
It's
yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, you tell
I'm
us.
not, so
I
I.
mean, we were gonna run through and we weren't gonna go to every single
No.
project.
No,
Obviously, if there's
I
a
have like
specific-
3 questions just to understand
If
certain.
there's a specific project that
Is-
you have a question about, certainly.
Is
we'll cover it.
Ardsley Avenue West drainage what I think it is, which is to kind of fix that area that,
Yes, from Clifton Place down to the.
Got it.
down-
Okay.
Halfway down the hill.
okay.
That's the upper part, and then the lower
Got
part
it.
is the balance.
And the other 2 culverts are sort of must-dos in the sense that they've been in the works, and if we're going to carry on with our addressing the flood plan. Okay,
One of the things that you don't see here and that you will see the next time is you'll see a breakout of the expected timeframe for borrowing the funds that are on this list. So, for example, the Riverview Road, Circle Drive, Broadway culvert, although that project would be approved as part of this capital budget, the grant funds have already been, we already have a grant contract with New York State on that. You've already approved that grant, signing of it. But those funds, that construction probably won't take place until 26, 27, with an outside possibility that it's 27, 28. So, because it's not even, we don't even have a designer selected yet for that project, so we haven't done any engineering. So, because the grant was just awarded, as you know.
Are there limitations on how long those grants last?
Yeah, I mean, they're typically 5 years, something like this, so we're not, that's not an issue here. So we would have this listed as a 25, 26 projects, one that you're approving because we have a grant and all the other reasons I just mentioned. But we would put in the expected borrowing year of 27, 28, or whatever the year, whatever we settle on, 26, 27. So that it'll schedule out when the borrowings are. And I think it'll help eliminate some of the confusion where in the past, we may have put this project down as a 26, 27 project, so it doesn't look like it's a this year project. So in your mind, maybe you look like you haven't approved it yet.
Yeah.
But yet we have the grant funds. So it's the exact thing that happened on the Matheson Park stage, for example. So we're trying to eliminate that. We'll have a little different presentation to try to show that for you. So that's not on this schedule yet, but this is just a raw project list.
And that would also be the case for the fire truck, because that's listed for 25, 26. But the payments probably wouldn't happen until 26, 27,
That's
at least.
the rescue.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a perfect example, actually, because there's a project where a year ago, we were asked to approve a contract to hire a designer, or a spec designer for the truck. It's not an architect, but they drafted the specs so that you can now take those specs and go out to bid with them. So we're ready to go out to bid for that. You won't see a truck here probably for at least a year and maybe more, even after a bid is awarded. But we have to have the knowledge that the board has approved that project and is expecting to borrow the money for that. We may take a year to borrow it because we don't need to right away. But we can't be in this state of limbo and find out, you know, after we do a bid and place an order that you decide not to fund it. You know what I mean? It can't happen that way.
I have a question about something. So I see that under police, there's a Chevy Blazer EV parking enforcement vehicle. I'm sure there's a reason. I don't mean this accusatorily, but I'm just asking if you happen to know, like, why do we need a big Chevy Blazer why can't it be like a little Chevy Volt for half the price? To parking enforcement.
We currently have like a little.
Yeah,
parking
yeah.
enforcement.
I mean, it's not like,
Yeah, no, it's a valid question. This was the request we got from the police department. I'm sure they factored into it the fact that your 6'6" parking enforcement
Yeah.
officer doesn't fit too well in the one we have, but I also understand that that's not a reason to spend extra money necessarily. So, but we can explore that.
Since you were on police, I think I had can we just get not tonight, because I don't think you're gonna know, but an understanding of what those public safety barriers actually are. I understand that the write-up that they had behind it, which was, sort of for crowd protection, but it would be useful to know because that's not a cheap item.
I reviewed, is that attached to the backup? I'm sorry.
Yes, I have attached the proposal.
Okay. So, yeah, I think the chief had put together a pretty good explanation of what he was concerned about. My discussions with him about that particular item were really, part of it was, the Matheson Park and the July 4th fireworks, that's always a concern.
Yep.
But I think the bigger concern, and really came to light with the events in New Orleans, is Halloween.
Yeah,
to be
no, I
honest
was
with you,
thinking
and the
about
Main
that.
Street area. And I think,
Or the tree lighting or any number of other things where you
Yeah.
still have traffic going by.
yeah, but again, the Halloween is really just jam-packed. And I think there needs to be some pretty serious consideration given to controlling the traffic better.
Yeah.
And I'm
But I
not
think-
saying I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering, what are you talking about barriers that would be like inhibit a car from going through them? They're for like safety.
They're, essentially, yes, that's the goal. They're not permanently installed, I don't believe. In the backup, and I know we just gave it to you, in the backup that.
He described it, but it was a brief description.
All I circulated.
Oh,
was
it's in
the
there. Okay.
wall.
I mean, I was
We'll
looking
get-
at-
No, but that's what I was looking for. You can show me the tear sheet that says this is what this thing looks like.
And I've seen that, so
Yeah.
I'll make sure that you get that. as part of
Okay.
the backup.
It's a valid point, though. I mean, it's a lot of people at Halloween. And it only seems to be going up.
remember the Halloween bans last year, it was too late. It was like already it was September, wanted the village to consider shutting down Main Street and making it more like other villages. And we said that's something we take up as we got closer. Maybe it's time to talk to the chief about getting an estimate as to what that would cost to do, because I think it's
Or
a
the side
safety issue.
streets. I mean, I can see something where some variation where you close parts.
Yeah, well, the idea was what they were saying, and obviously it's just one suggestion. I'm not saying that, anyone has to win or whatever, but what they were saying at the time was if you go to certain villages, they shut off the main street, so it could be like a whole party
It'd be
thing.
marvelous.
The kids are walking in the middle
Total
of the street
pedestrian
and,
zone, yeah.
I'm sorry?
A pedestrian zone, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. No,
Oh, I mean, I love it. I wonder if the practical considerations, but it seems like I'd love to do it.
Well, their proposal was if you put it just literally at the edge of the Main Street lot so that parents could still come in and do the turnaround in the parking lot, and you arrange something for the firehouse in case of an emergency, everything from there down could be closed off. So that could be just pedestrians and just encouraging people to come, but not having risking of people getting run
Yeah.
over.
I mean, you need a lot less barriers if you do that.
Yeah.
So that's right.
Yeah, so I just,
And
it's
you
just,
might even need less. Because already there's like at every block, there's a police officer.
Yeah,
right?
they have a pretty full complement that day.
Yeah.
I'm sure. As
So,
you can imagine.
I mean, that's just something that we should like, I guess formally now ask. I didn't want to wait too
Yeah,
far
we
out
should-
because it seemed ridiculous, but I think we're getting to the point now we're in May. I think it's
It's
time
not
to ask.
ridiculous at all.
Yeah.
No question, it should be considered. I mean,
I think a lot of people love it. I think there would be concerns about it, but like I think a lot of people.
I think really the only two things I thought of that could be a problem is we have to obviously work out the safety thing with the fire department and the ambulance. They have to be able to get in and out, especially on Halloween. And the other thing just is cost. If it's gonna be super expensive, obviously some people might push back, but let's find out. We don't know how expensive.
Yeah, it's less expensive than $131,000.
Yeah, I guess, so, yeah.
All right, well, I'll follow up with
Says
it.
Okay,
unknown
that's fair.
too,
So,
replace it.
yeah, that's true. So wait, so Larry, do you want me to send an email about that or
No.
you got it?
No,
Okay.
well, I'll follow up with it.
All right, great, thank you.
That being Halloween request.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I just want to make sure you were
Yeah.
talking
And I'll
about the
also
same
get more-
thing.
And I'll also get more details on the
Got
barriers.
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
okay.
Be sure.
I got two other questions. One, you have the senior center solar panels in there, and I know we still need something from the legislature. Is this a reasonable thing to assume we'll get in this timeframe? And I know maybe nothing's happened since you last talked to, I think it was Shimsky's office.
It was, yeah, and they haven't given me an update on.
Okay.
on that. So the background on this is that the parking canopy, which is part of this project that we had anticipated building directly to the north of the senior center, so the parking lot to the north. We planned on covering that with a canopy with solar panels on it. And that's part of the project. And currently, there's precedent that says that building a parking canopy is an alienation of parkland, because it's a park, it's a dedicated park where that is. Which seemed a little bit odd to us because parking is okay to have in a park, but a canopy is not.
It's like a building almost at that point. Is that the thing?
You're
You're like, I am so perplexed.
What do you want, logic?
I'm just trying to figure out what that
I didn't anticipate that.
I
So,
think it's a structure and that's what it is.
That's what I need. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, but so's a bathroom.
Yeah,
You know, so's-
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Anyway,
I know what
don't
you
get me
mean.
started. So anyway, apparently there's legislation in Albany to specifically exclude that from the definition of alienation of parkland. Which is great, except now we have a grant that's been handed to us that is now potentially contingent on that actually happening. So I'm trying to get a read on it from Shimsky's office and we haven't been able to get that
Okay.
information. The other part that's a little bit, and these numbers may have to be adjusted before the next time you see this. The other part that is up in the air is that the only money that's really guaranteed in this project in terms of outside funding is the CDBG grant that we were awarded. The other money we were relying upon was New York Sun solar credits, which usually are solid. I mean, New York State's not going to pull that, but the last I heard, they're into their last tranche of funding, and we hope that it's there by the time this project's ready. But the more important one is it also relied on federal solar tax credits, and that was part of the Inflation Reduction Act, and I don't know where that's going to go. So this one's in the budget, and I don't know whether it's going to happen.
Got
That's
it.
the best way I can say it,
Okay.
because there's really just too many variables at this point.
Okay.
You haven't accepted anything yet. I think we need to get a better understanding of what money's there and what you're committing to. I think if we lost the federal tax credits, you probably could make up for that. As long as you get the New York State tax credits, it's probably still a worthwhile project, but if you start losing the New York State credits, it's getting to the point where, like, why are we doing this, you know? Well, I mean, I know why we're doing it, you know, environmentally.
I
Yeah.
knew what you meant.
Yeah, no, of
It's,
course.
it's money, you know,
It's-
it's,
yeah.
so.
Is there any way to vary like the way you're doing the solar panel so it's not a canopy, but some other kind of structure that has solar panels? So
Well,
it is
you
a
know,
canopy.
there's also panels slated for the roof of the senior center,
Right, right.
but we needed, to make the
I
project
gotcha.
more viable, we needed more real estate to put panels on. So unless you want to cover the pickleball court, we're,
But would that apply this, wouldn't that be the same issue though?
no, it's not a parking canopy. I don't know.
I feel like there's some weird workaround for like make it like a nice gazebo that's like solar panels or something.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, so a lot of variables there. It's,
Yeah.
it's here, it's on the list. The numbers are gonna change before you actually look to approve this.
No problem. Or maybe it's a problem, but regardless, you've explained it. I got one more, and that is, I was a little surprised, and I assume Josie was too, that the fire department pushed to 26, 27, what are called building safety upgrades, which are adding a decontamination room and space for the compressor that is listed below that, and it's probably page
Is
1,
that-
2, 3. I understand why they may have done it. I'm reading into it because they've got $1 million for a truck up front. But I say this for those of you on the board who will outlast me and outlast Mitch. Keep in mind that those were very important to the fire department. And so when it does come up next year, I'll stand in the audience and suggest that you do that for their sake.
I guess I have a question because I think that we have discussed, any change to the facilities is a few years off. So I think that as a board, we've talked about that health, sort of that's a health risk.
Yep.
So I would want to understand why they would push it off when they have support from. That's kind of,
It's an excellent.
I think
question.
yeah.
I think we would all like to do something for the fire
Yeah.
department.
I mean,
like,
it doesn't
on the
hurt
center side.
to ask, why that got pushed off when they did come to a number of us and say that's is sort of a critical
We gave
item.
Tours, I got a tour of all the
Yeah.
safety problems.
And the other, obviously, when we see the totality of this package and there's at least one item that has question marks next to it, rightfully so, and that's the facilities planning consultant. It'll give us a better idea what you can squeeze in and, manage to do under the circumstances.
I guess if the cost is what, 140, is that?
It's now, you throw everything in, it's probably like 340.
Yeah, well, what we did was,
If you look at the top of page 3, which is,
we lumped some projects together because it's just easier to consider them as a package.
because the
Um,
building
Oh, I'm in
changes.
the fire.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
you're
the
in the sub
structural,
one?
Or the
Yeah,
overview.
yes.
and stuff.
the
You-
structural addition is 140, so that is included in the 301
The
under
bill.
building safety upgrades.
Okay.
So if, for example, I assume that also picks up like stabilizing the fire exit.
Yes.
Yes.
So you can't do one without the
Yeah,
other.
so I guess I would say that for $300,000 to deal with what we have talked about for many years as a serious, issue, we could even take that from fund balance, in my view, because that is sort of a one-time fix. So I would push that we do that sooner, not
Well,
later.
let's find out
Yeah,
why
that's
they
a
did
great
why they did what they did
Yeah.
first, because if there's some issue with when the air compressor can happen or when they can get things ready and design it, whatever. So
Yeah,
more,
yeah, there could be
more
just
facts
find
is
out.
good.
But if there isn't, I
Yeah.
agree with you
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes
Yeah, I
sense.
mean, I met with David and went through the requests, and ahead of that meeting, he had said that they had been encouraged to have things wait. And I couldn't really get a clear answer as to who.
Yeah, that's what I know clear that.
Well,
There's,
if I'm-
yeah, there's no one here that's encouraging them.
Well, I know that he worked on the budget with the building department, but I don't know what happened.
Well, that may have been a political suggestion in a sense that the $1 million they've got there is not an insignificant number, and he may have been thinking, hey, let's get that one past the board, and then you can come back and lobby for, fund balance or whatever it is. But I'm speculating as much as everybody else around here.
Yeah, so Larry will find out.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this was- I mean, all 5 of us are
Right.
supportive.
Yeah, yeah. I'll make sure they get that message.
So I have a more general question about the capital budget. And in multiple departments, I asked originally about the police one, because that one seemed to jump out at me as being like, I don't understand why there's a Chevy Blazer for parking enforcement. But there are a lot of pickup trucks throughout the different things, and they're priced at 75 to 100,000. I assume that's because they're electric and also because they need heavier duty, or?
It depends. The electrics actually aren't that expensive. The heavier duty pickup trucks are.
So we're paying because they have to be able to withstand more than your average street pickup truck.
It depends on what the truck is being used for. You know,
Okay.
if a truck is being used, let's say, by a general foreman that's not doing significantly heavy labor, that's one type of pickup truck, but then there's a 250 model and a 350 model, and those are the higher horsepower, depending on the type of job that it's being used for.
And the other question I had, just to be clear, this is something I've been talking about a lot, so no one should be confused as to why I'm asking this, but I do think I'm very concerned about the future, given federal funding and everything like that. So I think there needs to be more scrutiny than there has been in the past, in a way. And I think, do we need to replace this many vehicles? It seems like, I'm not an expert in any department, so I'm not casting any aspersions. But if we think in terms of like, if there was an austerity situation, would we need to replace this many vehicles this often? Because it seems like a lot.
Yeah, Mitch, I just want to be clear, the vehicles you're referring to, you're looking out into out years, correct? Some of
Correct.
them.
Not
Okay,
just this
fine.
year,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
But I mean, aren't we supposed to discuss the plan as?
No, no,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
I was just thinking I only see like one or two
Yeah,
in the current year, and but I understand what you're
Yeah, I
asking.
think there's about 7
Okay.
pickup trucks across 3 different departments.
The thinking it's like staggered because they were purchased in a staggered way, so they're getting,
Right,
they're
that's-
aging like every.
Yep.
No, I understand that. That's
Yeah,
obviously the way they always been doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I mean is like, so I mean, 2 things actually by that. One is, do we need that total number of vehicles? And do we need to replace them on that schedule? We replace them on that schedule because that's what we've always done under very different circumstances. And now I feel like we need to start thinking in terms of, it came up a little bit when, with that, with there gonna be the federal funding there for that was supposed to be under the, and I think that it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. I think that we're at the tip of the iceberg of where this is going. And I think that we need to be really careful that,
It's likely the states will be starved, and then we will
and then
get
you
hit
start getting
indirectly.
reductions from the state, exactly, because so much of the state, it trickles down in that regard.
I agree with you. I think the hard part is, I think we often talk about this in the capital budget and we sort of say the same thing, which is like, oh, they're on a 5-year cycle. But I think part of the issue that we need to do is like take a step back and look at the policy. And is it still a sound policy? Like, can vehicles go longer? And do we have, I think, a good question, do we have the right number of vehicles? I think it came up with the police department,
You did.
there's like 11 vehicles, 24 police officers, it's a lot of vehicles per officer. So again, I think I agree with you, Mitch, that, we understand the reasoning, we've been told it every year, but I think we have to take a step back and understand whether that policy is the right policy.
And it's all the
So-
departments,
so-
it's
Yeah,
not just the
across
police.
the
Right, so let me just explain, to the extent that there's a policy, which there isn't a policy on vehicle replacement, there's not a formal policy. What we present here is based upon what our best estimate is for the replacement time for these vehicles. Because as you can see, especially in DPW, we're looking out 10 years almost.
Based
And
on mileage or usage?
It's based on the type of usage, it's based on the type of vehicle that it is. And you'll see discrepancies. Like it's not like if there's a 10-year-old vehicle, it automatically gets replaced. A 10-year-old large dump truck could last another 10 years. A 10-year-old pickup truck that's been, beaten up and abused and worked hard might not make the 10 years. So that's just a blanket statement, but also on any given year, we don't blindly recommend vehicles to be replaced because their time is up.
Yeah.
They all get evaluated, they all get reevaluated to make sure whether they're ready for replacement or not. The best example I can give is that we of course sell all of our old surplus vehicles. If you looked at any of those vehicles, you'd understand that we're not selling anything that is still in the prime of its life.
Well, a good example is the one we gave to IVAC.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
If it was worth $5,000, it would have been,
We wouldn't have
Amazing.
gotten that. I mean,
Yeah.
We rarely get more than $5,000 for a vehicle.
Yeah.
And usually it's because it's a special situation
Yeah.
that someone wants it. It's typically it's less than that. So
I'm
we're not replacing prime vehicles.
And
And I'm not saying you're saying
Yeah,
we are,
yeah.
there's no policy that just says that. So the way this capital budget is presented really based on our best estimates, but until the year comes when it's quote unquote up for replacement, we're gonna challenge them and say, what's going on? Talk to the mechanic. Let's get an opinion from the mechanic on where is this vehicle at?
Yeah, I just want to make clear that we're in a time of rampant disinformation, and I know what I said could be easily taken by people outside and whatever. I want to make it very, very clear. I'm not questioning any of the departments. I'm not questioning any of their judgments. What I'm saying is, and I'm not saying that everything, I believe that these are all sincere attempts to be the most economical and budget conscious as they can be. That's not what I'm saying here, right? What I am saying is that I do think that under exigent circumstances, you need to behave in an exigent way, right? And I just think that I want to kind of get a better picture and have get more information and have the departments think about like, not I understand how hard they work to make sure that things are, like you said, that nothing in peak condition. We're working it down to the last minute, but let's just make sure that like everything that we have, we actually need, and that we need that many and everything, because again, I just think that we need to be ready in case things go as badly as I think they could go. And we don't want to be caught out in a year where suddenly there's a gigantic budget deficit and we have all these loan payments to make and we can't cut that because that's committed to. So all of a sudden we start cutting things that nobody wants to cut in that situation. We have a limitation on how much we can do in raising taxes each year. So revenue from taxes, not the tax rate itself. You know what I mean? So I think it's just something we need to start thinking about in the same way, with the financial crisis. I wasn't on the board then, but you were, right? And obviously I'm sure that wasn't fun, right?
No.
And you would have been, and the thing about that was I guess some would argue, but it was somewhat unpredictable. Just like one day we woke up and it was like, oh my God, Lehman Brothers is going under, right?
Yep.
So like this time we're getting a little bit of a heads up, like, hey, there's some really terrible shit going on. Excuse my language. And and I think I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can't.
That
He
is
didn't
not
hit the button
disinformation.
fast enough.
Yeah. And I just think that this time we have a heads up.
Yes.
And if this time we have a heads up, I just think we need to be thinking in terms of what would we do if we knew that 2026 was going to be 2009.
That's fair. So perhaps when particular trucks that are coming up now are presented, you could just get some background as to the current state of what's being replaced and why it needs to be replaced. I'm sure you probably have it already and probably would have presented it to us, but that's a starting point.
Right, and I'm sure, again, it's just getting information because all of our departments are so budget conscious and do such great work and everything. It's not in any way a statement about them. It's a statement about the future.
Okay.
I'll shut up.
That's okay.
I think what you're saying is valid. I think we often talk about the cars, and I think we just also need to take a step back. And which is not just the cars that we have being repaired and replaced. Is that the right number of cars? Do we have too many? So I think, all those things should be looked at.
So any other questions on capital budget? I know we have a meeting at 8, so. No?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Going. Okay. Why don't we switch to board priorities? Since you had requested this, I'm going to take 20 seconds at the intro and just sort of tell you what I see priorities. And then if anybody sees, I'm sure there are many things because you see Larry has a priorities list. I don't even know how many things are on it. I've got one a little less sophisticated, which is handwritten, but it's got 60 or 70 items on it. But when I think about what I know has to be done, let's say before the end of my term, we need to find a replacement for our village administrator. We need to see the streamlining committee process completed and preferably the board having responded to it rather than, unless for some reason it doesn't show up and, you know, the work doesn't show up until late in you know, September, October, but if we get it sooner than that, we can address it. The facilities planning committee process underway. In other words, we've selected the consultant and the process has started. I think that's probably a 6-month process, so I'm not going to be able to bring it to closure, but we should at least have done that work and understood what the consultant's going to do. Capital budget, something that I'll call committee management, which means making sure that the committees have the full complement of members and their chairs and whatnot. It's might not be perceived as a priority, but if we don't do it, they can't function. So I leave that as my priority. Shared services, for example, IVAC and other things, and the village officials committee, looking at things that we might be able to do. And lastly, one that gets sort of handled behind the scenes, and that is litigation and personnel stuff. So if I had to pick, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those would be my top 7. I'm sure there are other things that I'm forgetting. And I know, just to use an example that I'm sure is on Larry's list that I didn't raise, and Ed's Marin's list, the flooding and the culverts that have to be replaced. Those are huge projects and require a lot of effort, but I don't put it on my list because other than a monthly meeting where I hear about the status, some of you are there too. It's not something that necessarily demands my constant attention.
Well, we're spoiled because Larry has been so on top of that.
Yeah, exactly
Getting
right. Well,
grants and, you know.
absolutely right. I had others. The culverts were one, construction was one, various events, personnel, but they're little things. Those are not what I would put it as. They're not little, but they're not priorities that I'm attending to. So having said that, if you wanted to take this in a particular direction, and I'm not singling you out, but
Yeah.
you're welcome to.
I mean, I have a number of things I would love to talk about, but I also don't want to take over the meeting. So
No, no.
I
Well,
really open
you
it
got
up
like
to
20 minutes, so,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
unless
yeah.
somebody else wants to leap in with, here's.
Well, I mean,
like-
I'll take my 2 seconds.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
2 things I thought of is
Yeah.
affordable housing.
Yes.
And I think we should always have in our priorities that Irvington is a welcoming.
And I think what we just talked about is important and short term, which is the firehouse, the safety upgrades.
Yeah, I put that on the
And I would
capital
extend that
budget,
to-
but yeah,
I would extend that to the police.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we have limited space for female officers and the fact that there are certain things that are not adequate for the police either. And I know we have fewer options because of the physical space limitations they have, that we're literally looking at the wall of one of them, you know, like, unless we're gonna give up this room, you know, there's really nowhere for them to go. But I do think it doesn't mean that it's not a priority that we try to address some of their limitations too. I understand the fire one is a little bit more life and death.
and just so that you have some more, you'll take whatever flexibility you need, but you may have issues that you might want to discuss. It might not be in the top 10, but that you're interested in doing and you want to get a feel for the rest of the board. Would that be
Yeah.
a fair statement? Okay, do your thing, unless somebody else
You
has.
guys took all mine.
I
Sorry.
know. I mean, honestly,
Just say thank you and let it go.
It's not good when people agree.
I mean, a lot of ways we do all agree. I mean,
Just
I,
say it like green priorities as well.
That's
Oh,
fair.
yeah.
Continue
Yeah.
to maintain
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and climate status.
I agree with that.
And supporting our green initiatives, and that's gonna interconnect with everything else too, with the flooding
Yep.
and.
So that just gave us an even 10. So that's not a bad place to.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, you
be.
can't
No,
talk.
I'm done. Oh my God. I
Go ahead.
I should
No,
be
no, no.
gracious. I should just walk
Well,
over and talk
Nothing
no.
or 5, you have to have 5.
Since you asked for the subject, you get your.
Well, on the bright side is a lot of mine overlap. Like I honestly, the streamlining the facilities, the shared services, affordable housing, our house, we're all literally also on mine. So I think we've all been working on those things. And I think that's like been a priority. I've also just, you run to be on the board for a reason. There's all of these other like side like projects that I would love to like bring up. So I'd like to see if people would be interested.
Yeah,
please
So
do.
I've like had little conversations here and there, but where else can we have this conversation as a whole without
Yeah.
breaking some sort of law? So one thing that I wanted to bring up is had been a letter. She wrote it to everyone. She wrote it to you, and then you forwarded it to me, maybe. About having a newcomers committee. And so I have someone who has sort of done this on the side, in so unofficially for some time. She's been running like a WhatsApp group with hundreds of people on it since she moved here like 5 years ago. And I knew this. She's a good friend, and I was like, you know, you should do this like more officially, right? I think our village would be like really do well to have something that like welcomes people who to the village. So we've been nudging that, and so she's starting to actually plan that, and she'd like to like propose, I think, something like at some point soon. She started doing outreach, and I think she has like she sent out a letter like about a week ago. I think she immediately within hours got like 8 people who signed up, and I know and that kind of like rapid turnaround I think is impressive. So I think there's going to be a few requests probably. I'm nudging her. She's a little she doesn't want the spotlight, so I have to like nudge that a little bit, but I think she'd be really interested in like having things that communicate to the community, like calendars of like all the things that are going on in the community to help like people feel welcome, have some events to make people feel welcome, collect information like that we could like share like a sort of a welcome packet of some sort, something whether it's online or email, whatever it is, some format. And I think she's trying to fill that out. So I think they're going to meet as a committee at some point soon and like probably come to us.
So just to give you some
Mhm.
background for that, or study, you know, I think what they could look at what the Arts and Culture Committee, when they were called the Bulldog Committee,
Yeah.
did, right? They sort of had a concept, they came, they presented to the board. And that's a good, you know, I think probably like what we've said before, which is, you know, if you're gonna come and do the work, no one's gonna say no.
Exactly. I didn't think it would be too
Yeah.
controversial.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. I think there's, you know, we've had so many folks move to the village that like I think it's sometimes it's easy to be lost. Like I know I came here from the city and I was like, where I like don't know how anything works.
You know what? It can solve a lot of other problems.
The communication that we
Yeah,
have.
well, communication
Yeah.
also, but like I talked about, I called it committee management, but if people are interested in finding out about things and might be interested in participating on a
Well,
village.
it's a
committee,
perfect, I would say in a welcome packet, like, how do you get involved with our
Yeah.
community? Like 100%, that should totally
Right,
be
and
part of
That's
it.
how you find architects for the IRB and how you find people with
Right,
experience on the
exactly.
planning board and things like that.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
GBTF has a pretty extensive guide to if you want to renovate your home, like how to do it in like an eco-friendly way.
That kind of stuff. We were talking about that at the facilities planning. Or no, at a streamlining committee.
Yeah.
But how it would be great to have something for new families. Like, how do you do any of this stuff? Like, it's been a trial and error.
I would have liked that when I moved in.
I would also say just one of the things about newcomers, because that sort of says like a time frame, right? So like when
Just
that,
thinking that.
you might think about also like from an inclusivity perspective, how people might not feel like, oh, I've been here for 5 years, like I'm not a newcomer. So
I think she's trying to be very inclusive about
Not-
these things. I know, so I
The
saw that
name
you.
is-
No,
she
but
said
yeah,
it.
yeah.
The
The,
name.
the
It's the
welcome, yeah.
Oh, that's a
yeah.
good point.
The name.
The welcome to Irvington
A
Committee.
welcoming.
at whatever point you want to be welcomed.
I think
Yeah,
her point was though, it's like, how do you welcome people, but also just you want people to be on it who know how the village works. So
Yeah.
trying to actually do outreach, there's like a place for people who are not brand new to be part of it. Because like if everyone's nobody's no,
No,
it's kind of a problem.
Yeah, no, I think it's
The
sort
blind
of
leading the blind.
addressing a problem that it's
She'd be very
hard.
receptive to anything.
Yeah, no, I think it's addressing a problem of like, you know, it is hard sometimes for people to get acclimated or know.
Yeah.
It's, some of it is luck, like you might live next to someone who's really, you know,
Yeah.
informative or not,
Yeah,
so those kinds of things.
You
But
might
I-
even get them to watch village meetings.
Don't get to
Not
your
successful.
Let's do
I
it.
Now,
was not
John.
successful at
All
doing
right,
that.
thank you.
All right, so I mean, you'll see there's like a trajectory on this. So the next sort of thing I was thinking about was I'm a very community oriented, like why I do a lot of the things I do from my career and everything else. So another piece of this was like finding community spaces. How do you have like places for people to come together? And this is the age-old thing. I feel like it's been the dawn of time in Irvington, but a pool is a thing. So I didn't want to come without anything in hand. So I've been trying to like figure out what could be a suggestion. I've like dropped this one at a time to folks. One of the things I looked at was Mercy College or Mercy University. There's a pool that's that's outside that's actually on Irvington.
Oh, it's
within
on
the
the
town.
inside of the line?
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
It's just a nice touch.
Yeah.
And so we've been meeting with Tom Simmons, the vice president for facilities there, just to try to see if, like, is this even something we could get access to or whatever. I actually finally nailed it down today. And I think that it
Timing's
is.
everything. That's
I
great.
know, well, I was
Yeah.
just like, I need to know. Like they've been like,
Yeah.
they have their own bureaucracy. They are so slow. But it's
Remember,
actually,
you're on camera.
I love them. I love you guys, but it's a bureaucracy. I don't think you'd be shocked to know there's a bureaucracy at a university.
Got it.
So no, and they came up with I think a reasonable suggestion of probably around $250 an hour, which I was like, oh, that doesn't seem
No,
reasonable
not
at
bad at
all. Plus you'd have to hire lifeguards. They have a group that would.
Would
So
be times they're not using it, is that the way it is?
yes, and so
Maybe
it's
summer
used during the
camps,
week by a
right?
camp, but on the weekends it's just sits there.
So it would be in the summertime, you mean?
Summertime, I think we were looking at maybe like, well, we did a few weekends in the summertime, rent it out for 4 or 5 hours or something like that.
That's great.
And then like have a community event, like, and try to really rally folks to show up at that time.
I don't want to get buried in the details, but I think we had the conversation about whether do they need our insurance to cover this or what?
Probably, so we would have to
Okay.
work with them, to do that, but it seems, he's been feeling out all of his like legal folks about this, and I think as long as we were able to cover the insurance, and then we'd, have to manage it to some
Yep.
extent. So
Would people like join and pay a fee, or it would just be open to anyone who lives
we
in
probably work
Irvington,
with I think Maureen, I we chatted with her and using one of their systems, just like people sign up, because I think there's a limitation to how many fit in the pool. It's like
Yeah.
40, it's like 40 something, maybe 45 or something at a time.
or- Last thing you
Um,
want is like, 1,000 people trying to cram it.
Right. So I think you have people sign up, like having it like whatever 30-minute sessions or something. But there's also a huge grassy area next to it. You could like set it up, have like a community event, have picnics, and then people take turns using it. I think it could be a really nice event and not really very expensive, to be honest. So if everyone's in favor of it, I would like to continue.
Yeah, look into it.
Yeah,
It's
I
great.
think that's
It's a
fair.
great idea.
Right. Yay. The welcome committee, if we're going to call it that, is also very interested in this. Like I mentioned that this is something I was trying to figure out, and we would like to maybe blow on to that. So very likely that could be like also like one of the events for that group. Should I keep going?
You got time, so
I
go
do.
for it.
All right. I'm not gonna say no. Another piece I've been thinking about in terms of like community development in the village was like space. And so I've often wondered about the space next to the rec center that just sits there. If we could, at least in the meantime, before anything is decided to do, like, could we make it
Which space?
right?
There's a couple
That
picnic
big
tables
lot next to
below
the
coffee
old church where the Parks and Rec is,
shop, yeah.
where the
There's-
giant pine tree is.
There's a space there that's not
It's like a
used.
lawn.
Behind the sign.
Yeah, there used to be a
Oh,
building that
behind
burned
you.
down like 100
Okay.
years ago.
All right,
Like,
okay.
Right, it was a
Yeah.
rectory. Right?
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah,
Foundation's
yeah.
still there.
There's some
somewhere.
We're
beautiful.
gonna miss your historical knowledge so much.
Just put a shovel in the ground, you'll know.
You
Well-
need to start a website.
I know. There's old photos. You can see old photos of it. It's beautiful. It was a beautiful house we were in. It's just sitting there. So regardless of what our plans were in the future, could we use it? Like, and I know we've started to. I
Short-term,
know,
you mean?
yeah, potentially short term, or I mean, depends on what we want. But
I mean,
but-
the consultant says that could be a space for whatever. We don't want to build
Right.
something.
but I'm
before
thinking
that.
like a garden that could.
Oh, yeah, yes. That,
Yeah. So plant like a butterfly garden, or like and have some like we started putting picnic tables, but have just spaces like that. Maybe.
And that, by the way, was based on requests that came from the community that said, hey, can we use this space in some way, shape or form?
Right. Exactly.
Access,
Because of the coffee shop.
yeah, partly, partly
In my
because
mind,
of all
actually,
the
that was
people
where
out
it
there, yeah.
originated. Was
Yeah.
like the poor coffee shop.
Yeah.
Like poor Hector didn't have
Yeah,
anywhere to go, and then you guys. I was literally like talking about this that you just did it because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, bravo, guys,
Yeah.
well done.
Well, sometimes we back into something that's good.
I know. I know. So, but I mean, I think you could like, without a lot of funding for it, just like clean it up, make it more welcoming, maybe like the right signage to get people to want to use it. and-
Publicize it, because I don't think,
And publicize
I
it,
mean, I'm a
exactly.
trustee and I didn't know exactly.
You
what that when
also,
you started.
I think you talked to Maureen about the access issue, which may have to be off the side, for
Yes.
handicapped access.
We should have
Yeah.
handicap access, and we had talked about it. Like, I think there would be a way to, without too much difficulty, putting a ramp in the back
Yeah.
if you can't do the front.
You have a question or comment, David?
Just point of fact, that piece of property is on the facilities planning committee spreadsheet.
Understood. This is not a permanent
No, it's there. I'm
installation.
just saying it is there. The size of it is there.
Mhm.
The property is 2 lots originally,
Oh, was it?
and both lots are equal. So the empty lot is the same size as the lot the building is on.
Mhm.
So one could take up another full building, which was there originally. So it's a large space.
Yeah, it is very large. Just walking around it, I feel like you could do a lot with it. I can imagine it being like a community sort of project too. Like it doesn't have to be like done professionally. Like we have a lot of gardeners.
Well, first, yeah, as somebody who does gardening, you've got a pretty large pine tree there that may make the sun
Yes.
coming in
I-
for
it
a
would
butterfly
need-
garden a bit.
I
of
had
an
talked to
issue.
Maureen about that. It would need some serious trimming or something. I know. I would love to see it honestly replaced
Oh,
with
yeah.
a really good tree,
strong.
but I know that's a
All
huge
move
project.
everything over a
in
little bit.
itself,
I guess
so
I could.
That's
do
what I'm
it.
saying.
I agree.
I was gonna let it charge for a bit.
Okay, you might have time for one if you can do it in 5. I'm assuming, is Don still like 8 o'clock?
There he is
Okay.
right there.
All right.
Oh, all right.
All right, last one, super fast. We have an amazing season in the fall of like the holidays, and I feel like we could do more with that, like promote people coming to the village throughout the fall. So just coming up with like a series of like fun outward facing like kind of events to bring people in around Halloween and potentially into like the December holidays. I was just trying to brainstorm of different things we could do, just like Halloween related, that's leading through September and October. You know, just groups that I work with, like the dog folks are like super keen on doing a dog costume parade in the Madison Park, which literally costs nothing.
Yeah.
And I think would be hilarious and fun. And just you publicize the heck out of it and they get people in here instead of them just we become the place that people go to so they can park easily and then go to Tarrytown. We could be a place that people go to. We'd love, right? And so I was trying to come up with like a series of things like that. So I spoke to Maureen about this, and we were like, what if we did like storytelling type things in like the rec center building? They had those wonderful. I don't know if anyone attended the puppetry events, but they were really popular. And like bring in storytellers, like the Jonathan Crooks of the world, or you know other things like that that are like a little maybe Halloween related. That'd be
Well,
Drug
closing
folks
off the
in.
village on Halloween kind of fits into what you're saying right
Well,
now, because that could
playing
be a
off
much
that.
bigger event.
Mhm.
I mean, it already is huge, but I'm saying. it
I don't
could
think
be-
I wanted it. to be
That's
I'm thinking,
true.
but it has a reputation. Want to build it up, get people into town, go to the restaurants, do all these
Yeah.
things. 'Cause there's so many things that like lead up to it in the area.
Also, we can work with the theater, I think, also,
I
because
would
tie
love to
into
do something
that
with
as well, to
theater.
have some Halloween events at the theater.
Well,
I
and
would
last year, the Rivertown's Chamber did like a small Halloween event in the Aqueduct parking lot.
Oh yes, that was.
So
I heard that was
we-
really nice.
It was great, and
Yeah.
we could probably offer them more support if they wanted to repeat
100%.
that. They
Agreed.
had it
Yeah, I was a judge
prepared.
of that.
I was just about to say thank you.
Yeah.
I remember I couldn't.
I was,
I couldn't
John
you
couldn't do it,
stepped
so I
in.
filled in, I was a costume judge. For
Oh.
the first and second prize for the kids and the first and second prize for the adults.
Yeah,
I
they
couldn't go,
paired
but I
with
heard
the-
wonderful things about it.
They
The word
paired
was
with
great.
the
It was great.
Rivertown's players and did like a performance and had lanterns, and they would like lead people over, and then
I
they
love
had
it.
vendors. It
That was
great.
another thing some people complained was too far away, so that it looked less crowded.
They wanted to do it at the school, but they also wanted to serve.
They couldn't set
Alcohol.
up.
They wanted to serve champagne.
Yeah.
You know, little glasses of champagne, and they couldn't do it on
Right.
school property.
But the problem was that like when you got to the parking lot, it only looked like half filled, and that's because half the people were all the way over there, and some of the parents had complained about going so far away. So I know they told me, they got a hold of me in a good way, I'm not
Yeah.
complaining, and said like, how can we get it more compact? How can we get it more like in one place and everything? But so it was great, that plaything's great, we gotta find out a way to do it. And they asked if they could do it, where did they ask? I think I asked,
I want to do it again, don't they? I think I attended the.
but they asked me if they could do
meeting.
it on somewhere else that the village. I'm blanking now, but it was some other location that they wanted to move it to.
We could
on our
definitely
property.
support.
And I said, yeah, but pitch it to us and we'll give it a hearing.
Preferably more
exactly.
than, more than a week in advance, as I'd
Well-
seen like the last one. was.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I
Wasn't
think
that bad.
if we can plan this in advance, I think a small event could have a huge impact. So I
Because there
think
was so many people there. First of all, it was on long enough that people were coming and going, like I was there longer
Yeah.
because I was judging. And you saw people coming and going.
But then I
coming
would
and
love to
going.
get this, I would love to know in advance that we could publicize the heck out of it so that we actually get lots of folks coming to the village, going to the.
From
restaurants,
outside.
Can I-
Yeah.
Can I just address events in general? In the village, having planned lots of events, we have to be careful. I think what part is gonna be on the rec and our staff
Right.
versus what people are gonna plan.
This is the Chamber of Commerce.
No, no, I know, I'm talking about events in general.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so for example, the chamber they plan their own events and they charge for them and they make money
Yeah.
on their events. So
Although
that's the
even the
difference.
chamber, I think, required contribution from the village,
And
whether it
they
was police or whatever.
Right,
So,
so it does have some effect. So I think that we should just be mindful, like when we tell Maureen, so I've been talking to Maureen as well about, because we talked about the movies, which were something that had been contemplated over time, but never kind of came to fruition. It had been on the budget, but it didn't really happen. I do think it's important to do like events, but we have to separate the events that they do, right? Like that was the issue a little bit with Rocktoberfest, where it was an event that like the community wanted to do, but there was a huge burden on the rec department.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
So I do think like and even this happened with the Bulldog Gallery, right? The Bulldog Gallery, which took an enormous amount of work from volunteers, and we did 100% of the work. Even now, trying to get like the, Parks and Rec to do it and DPW isn't so easy because, they're on their work schedule, like, but that project, which is like a full summer long thing and a huge production, does develop into something that needs support, right? Because you can't get, I think everyone on the
Reminder.
committee is sort of done with carrying the bulldogs, installing the
I imagine,
bulldogs, storing them, like doing all this, which is a lot of work. So just when you think of events, I think there has to be a plan, like an overall plan. There can't be like one-offs, and they have to, I think, budget, right? It has to be, so that's gonna be I think, real effect that most people don't understand, right? Like even from the Bulldog Committee, like it was like, when I'm talking to the Bulldog Committee, I'm like, okay, but it's not just can DPW X, like it has to kind of be planned more than people
Gotcha.
think.
I mean,
Yeah.
I plan a lot of events for my
Yeah.
work.
No, I know, but your
understand.
work might be different than the village and for other people. This is why, because they have to know in advance, I think, or we just are contingent funding or moving stuff. So I think it's good to do that, but we should look at it as a plan, like an overall plan, like what do we want to do for like this coming year?
Yep.
Like what good events would be and kind of space them out and plan them, because I think the concern I hear from Maureen is the cost part, because she doesn't, like I'm saying this for myself, when we sort of are like, we really need help with the Bulldogs, right? Now it's like, where does that come from? Right? You and I talked about the extra help for even unloading the Bulldogs. So I think that we need more events, but we need to figure out what part is gonna be done by the residents versus, yeah.
No,
And planning
considering-
out like a calendar of events is good. And then we have to figure out budgeting.
okay, all right.
Thank you.
I think you've
I've lost, I know I've
exhausted
lost
our-
it. I got it.
No, it's good.
You got
That's
through
great.
I got
Yeah.
there. I mean, probably,
Lot of
but
good ideas.
I appreciate your
The
time.
pool thing
Thank you.
was very, because everyone always thinks about building a pool
Yeah.
and we can't build a pool, but let's build a pool, but we can't build a pool.
Yeah.
This is a good way of coming around the side.
Yeah, I have a lot more to talk about pools, but for another time.
All right, so we're gonna switch to executive session, which
Yes.
basically means, David, thank you for serving as our audience. Have a good evening.
So you're adjourning to executive session.
I'm adjourning to executive session. Do I need a motion for that?
Sure.
All right, I'll take a motion.